I recently added a new lesson to my Hard Surface Sculpting course, and I want to share it here as a preview for anyone curious in that course. The alpha brushes that you see used in the video are included with the course as well as the blend file. One thing you'll notice is that there's not a lot of sculpting in this video. This video is more about making a sculpting tool. Specifically, we're making a tiling displacement map, which can be a really fun tool to use to quickly generate some concepts in 3D. It's not the only method for making this kind of tiling map, and the course explores another technique as well, but this one is pretty easy. For the occasion of this small update, I'm running a short discount just for the weekend, so if you're curious about this course and you want to get it, now is a good time. So go to 3dsecrets.com if you want to learn more. So here I'm in a fresh scene, and I'm just going to switch to the top orthographic view. And I'm going to add a grid. A grid is basically the same as a plane, except it already has some subdivisions. And I'm gonna subdivide it a couple more times, just so that we have enough geometry. I just want to make sure that the unit scale is 1 and that the scale of the grid is 1, so that there are no surprises later with the scale or anything like that. So let's add a camera, and we're gonna set this camera to orthographic. But first, let's move it up on the Z-axis. It doesn't really matter how high with an orthographic camera, but just set it to orthographic. And then set the orthographic scale to 1.5. And I'll explain in a minute why that is. Now let's set the resolution to a square format, so 1080 by 1080 for example. As long as it's square, it's all fine. And let's switch by pressing 0 to the camera view. And I'm just gonna choose a matte cap real quick and turn on the cavity. Then it's a bit easier to see the depth. Now in sculpt mode, I've got my brushes here, and these are the brushes from the course. And now I can just start dragging them on the surface, but as you can see, the resolution is much too low. So I'm going to add a multi-res modifier. Now it's good that we already have some geometry subdivisions. And now if I subdivide it linearly a few times, then it's just easier for the computer to handle all those subdivisions. If we just added a subdiv modifier to a plane with no geometry subdivisions, then it would take a lot more subdivisions and would be heavier for the computer. So I have it up to about 1.5 million faces, a little bit more, 5 subdivisions, and as you can see now, the alphas look nice and crisp. So if they're blurry, you basically just don't have enough resolution. I want to have tiling symmetry, so X and Y tiling, that's what we have to turn on. And then we're going to set the tile offset X and Y to the same value as the scale of the orthographic camera. And that way it's tiling exactly along the borders of the camera. But as you can see, the alpha doesn't look particularly good. It has a radial shape. So how do we solve this problem? So let's go to the brush, because it's actually a brush setting. We just have to set it to view plane. And as you can see now, it looks fine. And so it's really important that the tile offsets and the orthographic camera scale are the same value. That way it maps perfectly, as you can see. So everywhere we drag the alpha, it shows up on the other side as well. And unfortunately, we have to change for every brush that we use, we have to change it to view plane the first time we use it. So now I can just start really quickly adding some detail. Just have to remember to keep setting it to view plane. And no matter where we drag it, it will arrive on the other side and it will tile perfectly once we bake it to a displacement map. So I'm just having some fun adding some detail, and this one is a negative brush, so I have to hold Control. And so I'm quickly going to add some more detail this way. And of course, with Ctrl F, we can rotate the brush. With F, we change the radius, and with Shift F, we change the strength. But I recommend with alpha brushes that you set the strength always to 1 to have the correct shape of the alpha. And of course, you don't have to stick just to alpha brushes. You can also just model geometry. And now when we switch to object mode, we can't see the detail, and that's because we have to increase the viewport levels on the multi-res modifier. Now I'm just going to add a single vert from the extra objects add-on that you have to install in extensions. And I'm just extruding that vertex. And I'm just creating some shapes real quick by just extruding that. And it is perfectly on the surface of the grid. It's important that there is no undercut on the curves that I'm going to create from this. And I'm just going to add an array to this extruded vertex. And let's set it to constant offset. And then again, use that value of 1.5 on the x-axis, and then we duplicate it, and then we set the negative version of the x value. And then we duplicate it again, and we repeat that for the y-axis. So set y to 1.5, and then another one minus 1.5 on the y-axis. So now we have a tiling extruded vertex. And we can extrude it and it will appear on the other side as well. And let's quickly set this grid to be non-selectable, otherwise we keep accidentally selecting it. And let's turn on cage so that we can select it everywhere in all the arrays. And we can just take one vertex and Shift D and duplicate it. And we just have to make sure that when we exit on one side of the axis, we appear on the other side, that we just continue it until it goes inside of some extruded alpha shape or something else. So now that I've finished doing that, I will convert it to a curve, and then we can easily give them all some thickness. Actually, let me just undo that, and let's select some of these corner vertices, and then we can just bevel them to make them all a bit smoother. So Shift Control B to bevel these vertices. Then when we convert it to a curve, it will have a nice round shape. So when you press Shift Control and B to bevel these vertices, you will be able to scroll the mouse wheel up or down to increase or decrease the amount of vertices. And if you want, you can also change the profile, but in this case the default is fine. So that looks a bit smoother. So let's convert it again to a curve, and then again give it some depth in the bevel settings here. So then I converted this all to mesh, and then I selected everything in edit mode and merge by distance. And as you can see, that removed a lot of vertices, and then I was able to edit the shape with proportional editing. I just wanted to make sure that these pipes don't really overlap each other, and just adjust their thickness a bit as well with Alt S. So you can select one particular piece with L in edit mode and then Alt S to scale it up or down. You just have to make sure that you also do that on the other side. So if it shows up somewhere else in the map, then you need to make sure that it's scaled equally. So here I have a test file for the tiling displacement, and as you can see, it tiles very nicely, but there is one little problem, and that is here things don't match up, and that is simply because I was messing up those pipes with proportional editing. And let me just show you how you can fix it. So you can see it here. This is the same problem that is repeated, and let me just quickly show you how to solve that. So here we are back in the file, and yeah, it is basically just this area here that doesn't match up. Here you can see it doesn't even go all the way to the edge. It's pretty easy to solve that. First of all, I am just going to take this, and let me just go to wireframe mode. And let me just go, and in X-ray mode, I'm just going to make sure this goes all the way till there. And then I'm just going to take these, select these, and just delete them. So I'm just going to select these. These are the ones that I edited with proportional editing. And I'm just going to duplicate them with Shift D. And just right click to cancel any transformation. G and Y to move them. Minus to move them down in the minus Y direction. And can you think of the value that I should type on the numpad to move them? Is it 1 unit? 2 units? It's 1.5. It's the same value as the camera scale and everything else. 1.5. And then it should match up perfectly now. So let me just quickly go ahead and bake that, and I will show you the result. And I'm back in the test file, and as you can see, the problem is now completely solved by replacing that texture. And so now we can just tile this as many times as we want. And one more thing before you bake is these things that are looking quite segmented, they will also render that way in the displacement map, even if you've set it to shade smooth. So it's important to check. And if necessary, just add a subdiv modifier. So I'm just pressing Ctrl 2 in this case to add 2 levels. And then when I bake this, the map will look nice. Otherwise, you will see those flat faces in the bake. So this concludes making the geometry for the displacement map. And next we'll bake it with a simple gradient material, and then we can actually use it like in this example here. So if you're curious to learn more about this course and its unique workflow, now is a good time with this discount. So check that out on 3dsecrets.com.